right, welcome into the stream, everyone. Thank you for being here. I don't know where I'm looking. I'm looking at the timer. There's nothing over there. Welcome to the stream. My name is Doña, aka Doña the Light. I don't know. I need to get my life together. Okay, there we go. Welcome back to the stream. Yeah, totally had a brain fart. But again, my name is Doña, aka Doña the Light. Thank you for being here. I've said this 6 times. It's one of those kind of mornings, y'all. It's one of those kind of mornings. If you are catching this live stream here on Twitch, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here in the chat. You know how much Twitch cares about views. If you're here, feel free to contribute, share your thoughts, opinions, agreements, disagreements, praises, yeses, whatever in the chat. We appreciate any and all contributions. If you're catching this replay on YouTube, thank you for watching. I want to let you know up front that this is basically going to play like a podcast. So if you don't have the ability to physically watch the video, that's okay, because we just sitting here talking. I mean, there's a baby, but he ain't doing nothing either. And again, if you're catching the replay on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's a wonderful free way to support my channel. And yes, so we are here today to discuss, how to embrace the power of your healing journey. I have my wonderful friend Diana Robinson with me today. She was with us last week. She is a clinical psychologist in training, a therapist in training. And so last week we were talking about just asking her questions and kind of diving into a lot of different stuff. Today we're going to be discussing with her how to embrace the power of your personal journey, whether it be healing journey, your academic journey, just your life journey in general. So Diana and I were already starting to get into the conversation before I went live. So I was like, we gotta go live. We gotta get all this out. Today's stream is also going to be a little bit shorter. We'll probably end around the 45-minute mark-ish. But yeah, again, if you're here, contribute in the chat, and we'd love to hear from you. Diana, go ahead and kick us off, and let me know kind of what your thoughts are on this topic and kind of what led you here.
Yeah. Well, first off, good morning, y'all. Doña, thanks for having me back. I'm really excited to just join you and have this chat this morning. As I was telling Doña before we hopped on to the live stream, I really was just doing the dishes the other day, and this kind of just popped into my head about how, I was just kind of thinking about my own journeys and how I've been really kind of fighting against them in different ways. And I'll explain what I mean. I find myself often thinking about where it is that I want to be, where it is that I hope to be, I plan to be, what have you. And I'm very rarely thinking about the moment that I'm in, whether that is academically, professionally, personally, in my journey of healing, my journey of self-discovery, journeying through grief, any of those things, like just really not taking stock of what is actually happening in the moment and looking at where I'd like to be. Gosh, I really wish I was over this already. I really wish I was past this. I really wish I had gotten this degree by now. I wish I had this job by now. I wish all of these different things, and not really taking a moment to take stock of what it is that I'm doing in the moment, what it is that I've gained over the periods of time that the journey might entail, what I'm gaining from my experiences, my setbacks, X, Y, and Z, all of the different things that I'm learning about myself, about life, about what I want, what I don't want, and just just really not taking. I'm kind of losing the forest for the trees, so to speak. I'm not taking stock of everything that is going into, what makes a journey, and what makes this, what really is kind of helping to contribute to who I am as a person, right? Like I feel like we lose sight of how. Again, looking at the destination, we lose sight of how our journeys are actually transforming us as people and making us the people that we are. I was really just kind of thinking about those things and wanting to open up the conversation and see kind of just what your thoughts are, what the community's thoughts are, and really kind of just talk about different ways that we can start embracing the power of our journey and really, taking the benefits out of it, as opposed to just focused on that next step or focused on that destination, and just really take the value out of the process as we're going. So yeah, that's what brought me here this morning.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Welcome in, Raylene. Thank you for being here. Raylene says, "Hey yo, same. I'm never really living in the moment." really. I feel that 100%. And so,
Mm-hmm.
oh, there's so many things. There's so many things. So many gems that you dropped already, and kind of like different conversation tangents, I guess I could say I could go on. But
Mm-hmm.
primarily, what we started having a conversation about, like we said right before I started the live stream, was qualitative versus quantitative measurement. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Diana and I have both been in school for 1,000 years, and
Yes.
so we've had to do a lot of research. So, essentially, quantitative measurement is something that you can just think about it as quantity. It's very easy to measure. Like if I take a test and I get a score of 92, and then I go do some exercise, and then I take a test and I get a score of 98, quantitatively, I can measure the difference between those two scores given, we're not going to get too into it, but quantitatively there's a difference, right? I got 6 points higher on my score and my test after I did the exercise. Whereas qualitative measurement is about the quality of the data. It's more so discussing the differences in like conversations and interviews and surveys, and it's more about the collective difference in the data,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no like numerical value, so it's difficult to measure. So what Diana and I were beginning to talk about is, let's just take being passive aggressive, for example. Being passive aggressive is, and I talk about this often, is kind of what sparked my healing journey, because the guy that I was dating at the time, I was very passive aggressive with him. And I realized, not early enough, but I realized eventually that I'm the only person that's frustrated in this situation. I'm walking around, like my mom would say, with my face like a fist. And I know you remember that, Diana. I'm walking around with my face like a fist because, he hasn't done the dishes. And some way, somehow, I believe that, like, my brain waves or thoughts or something are going to get transmitted to him, and he's going to know that the reason why I look upset is because I want him to do the dishes instead of just
Mm-hmm.
asking him to do the dishes. So once I realize that I'm doing this and that this is only impacting me, I take into account that, okay, how can I change my behavior and make it so that I'm not feeling miserable all the time? Because he's over here in bliss, right? Because he's completely ignorant to the situation because I'm not a good communicator. He doesn't even know why I'm upset and that it even has anything to do with him because I haven't said anything.
Right.
So just going forward, noticing that I am now less frustrated, less stressed, but I have to take into account being able to look back and say, wow, just 3 weeks ago, I
Mm.
would have walked past this sink of dirty dishes and been livid, just instantly upset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But unless we document our journey and, kind of make mental notes or even physical notes or voice notes or whatever works for you, video notes, whatever works for you, to track and say, okay, this is what I'm actively working on. I've noticed this about myself. This is the story that I'm telling myself right now, etc., etc. And then continuing to do that and document your progress or document your thoughts, your feelings, whatever, in whatever
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm.
but in a way that you can look back, and I think that's what we don't do enough, is looking back and saying, wow, 3 weeks ago when I journaled, I was pissed. Like, I was really
Mm-hmm.
upset. Everything that I journaled about was just a bunch of, this is upsetting me, this is upsetting me, this is frustrating me, etc., etc. And now when I journal, I still have things that I'm sharing with myself that are
Right.
frustrating. But for the most part, maybe I'm talking more about solutions. I'm
Mm.
talking more about, this makes me feel and this is what I can do about it. Raylene says, taking me back to my math exams right now with the qualitative and quantitative. Um, but yeah, so go ahead, Diana. I know you got some stuff to share about this too.
No, you're good. You're good. I appreciate what you said because I think that is like the point that you just made about having something that you can look back on
Mm-hmm.
is very important because I think, you know, it's really easy for us to forget where we were 3 weeks ago because
Yes,
such is life, right? Like it's moving a million miles a minute, and the time
absolutely.
warp that is now is just it's very difficult to remember what you had for breakfast 15 minutes ago, let alone
Right.
what you were doing, 3 weeks ago. And I think
Mm-hmm.
especially because it is something that we're not trained to do, to look at ourselves in an evaluative way, both looking at our emotions, looking at our thoughts, looking at how we are presenting ourselves to the world, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, reflecting on what it is that you were doing and how it was impacting you. um, really lets you realize that, yeah, you were the only one being impacted by these thoughts and behaviors.
Yeah.
But we don't like file that away in our Rolodex to be able to remember. Like, that's not something that we remember as easily as we do the fact that our partner didn't do the dishes 3 weeks in a row. Like that, we can pull
Right.
out without even having to flip through the Rolodex. We know where that
It's so
card is,
true.
right?
December
We-
13th, 2022.
I remember there were 3 pots, 2 plates. Like, you can paint the entire picture, but
Yeah.
we don't give ourselves that same, like, attentiveness. We're not that
Mm-hmm.
attentive to our own lived experience, and that's what I like to
Yes.
call qualitative. Like, that's another way I like to think of qualitative data, is the lived experience of the people that you're studying.
Yes.
um and so, yeah, that's very hard to put numbers on or put something tangible on, because it's literally your lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, excuse me. um but yeah, so having that journal, or having something to look back at and really be able to see the differences in between your thought process, or how you approach something, or how you were even perceiving something,
Mm-hmm.
is huge, and is very, um gosh, it's just really helpful to be able to step back and see that part of the journey that
Right.
that you've taken, to be able to look back and see what you've accomplished, what you've learned, what you've overcome. And again, those are things that we don't really give ourselves the grace or the time to do,
Mm-hmm.
because we're always on to the next thing. So we don't really, reflect on those things, and take those things into account.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that about the journaling, because that's something that has been very impactful for me as well on my journey, on my various different journeys. I've got a journal for gratitude. I've got one for, like, my doing my shadow work, trying to figure out, all of my deepest, darkest qualities that I ignore or shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I recently started a grief journal. And it's really just getting things out. Like, I don't have, like, specific prompts for. I have some prompts for all of them, for some of them, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
but not for all of them. A lot of them is just a thought dump of just what it is
Yes.
that I'm feeling at the moment, which
Mm-hmm.
in and of itself is extremely useful,
Yeah.
to get rid of those things. Not that you're going to stop thinking of them or stop feeling them, but it kind of gets it off of that repetitive loop that you've got in your mind. So yes, I'm a big champion of writing things out, journaling them out. Like you said, even like a voice note, just getting it out of your head, out of your being in some way.
Yes.
I think is really important. And again, it gives you that tool to be able to look back on and be like, oh snap, look at how far I've come in just these
Right.
3 little weeks. Like, wait a minute, I didn't just bite his head off for those
Right.
dishes. And it's like, wait. And you can celebrate those little moments. I think that's another piece
Yes.
that's really important, is learning to celebrate those tiny accomplishments. Like, we are very accustomed to only celebrating that end goal. It's like, okay, I graduated. Now I've got my degree. I can celebrate that. But, like, wait a minute, you had to do, like, really difficult things along the way.
Right.
And something that I say often, and I have to tell myself as well. Like, wait a minute, celebrate the small steps,
Mm-hmm.
celebrate the small victories, because those are what actually adds up, to that large victory at the end. So
Yeah.
anyway, I went on my ramble. Your turn.
Ramble tag team. Uh,
Yes.
so what immediately comes to mind for me is the acknowledgement of celebrating the little things. So there's been so many women that I've spoken to, clients and potential clients, who
Mhm.
ask me, well, how do I do that?
Mm.
And I remind them sometimes it's literally as simple as just saying, I'm proud of you, as you're speaking to yourself, looking at yourself
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
eyeballs. Take your glasses off. You do it
Right.
in the eyeballs.
Really
And you
connect.
tell, yeah, and you tell yourself, I'm proud of you for blank. And it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be, like you mentioned, for completing your degree. It could be, I'm proud of you for persevering. I'm proud of you for sticking with that class, even though it was
Yeah.
difficult from like week 2.
Mhm.
I'm proud of you for um, breaking old habits. I'm proud of you for not staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning, and you have an 8 a.m. class. I don't know why these are all school based, but,
I know.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for whatever. I'm proud of you for taking the time or making the time to journal every morning.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
proud of you for doing that. I'm proud of you for
I'm proud of you
stick.
for making it through a really tough day that you did not think you
Yes,
could make it through. Like,
absolutely,
mhm.
absolutely. I'm proud
Mhm.
of you just for sticking to it. And then on the opposite side of that, I'm proud of you for saying no to that event because you needed to rest. You
Yes.
know, I'm proud of you
Yes.
for leaving that Christmas party early, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because, previously you would have stayed, just been miserable, and then just kind of endured. But at some point, where you reach your threshold, you wouldn't have been enjoying yourself, you would have just wanted
Right.
to leave, etc., etc. So, yeah, just saying that to yourself. I've had so many clients and potential clients and just women that I speak to who are like, I've never, or it's been a really long time where someone has just told me they were proud of me.
Mm.
And I do my best to acknowledge that in them as often as I can. And then it reminds me to do the same for myself. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
Raylene asks, how do you each journal personally? So for me, similar to Diana, I sometimes have prompts, sometimes not. Sometimes I literally just grab my notebook and I'll sit in front of my altar and I'll just write. Sometimes I meditate before, sometimes I meditate after, sometimes I don't meditate at all. I'll just journal. Um, for a little while, I was doing voice notes on my phone with this app. I
Mm.
forgot the name of it, but that was really helpful because I could just, grab my phone and just start speaking. But as she mentioned, just being able to just get it out of you, because a lot of times when we have those friends who we just vent and vent and vent and dump and dump and dump and dump to, that's all we want to do is just get things out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another really great thing about journaling is you're going to notice if you've been writing down the same thing over and over.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You might not notice that you've been telling your friend that you've been complaining about, your boyfriend not washing the dishes, not washing the dishes, not washing the dishes, not washing the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
But if you write that down for like 4 days in a row, you're going to notice, what can I do about this? I
Mm-hmm.
keep writing
Mm-hmm.
down the same
Like, wait a
complaint.
minute.
Yeah,
I'm tired of writing this over and over again. Like, oh, my poor friend must be so sick of hearing this.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's going to be, as she mentioned, we're so much more attentive to what other people are doing and their behavior and how what they're doing impacts us. A lot of times we just completely glaze over the things that we are doing that are impacting us,
Yes.
and the fact that
Yes.
we are in complete control of not only our behavior but how things impact us.
Mm-hmm.
If someone does something frustrating, that's because I interpret it as frustrating. Like I saw, I don't know, a TikTok or something that says, just because I feel annoyed by my children doesn't mean my children are being annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
they're not intentionally like, poking you with a
Right.
fork or I don't know,
Right.
whatever. Um, it's just how you perceive it, and sometimes it's just how you perceive it in that moment. It might
Mm-hmm.
be that you're busy with something, and so hearing them laugh and jump and run and blah 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 is annoying, or etc. But yeah, Diana, tell us a little bit more about how you like to journal.
Yeah. My path to journaling has been kind of like, it has not been linear. It has been, which I think many journeys are like. I think that's another just side note. We
Yeah,
need to get this idea of linearity out of our minds in terms of our journeys. Right, there is no linear path to anything.
absolutely.
So anyway, that's a side note. But yeah, so my journaling has been kind of, I've fallen off and on the wagon of journaling here and there. But I feel like when I was really when I benefit from it the most is when I try to make a daily practice of it, but I don't like beat myself up if I miss a day doing it, right?
Right.
Because again, that just that creates a whole nother problem. If you're just like, oh my god, I was supposed to journal, I didn't journal. Oh, I'm so terrible for not journaling. It's like, no, 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 no,
Mm-hmm.
don't do that. So just making it an activity that you benefit from or that you enjoy, but not something that you're obligated to do. First off, like so, the
Right.
mindset that you have towards journaling, I think, is important. But yeah, for me, it was really just I just have a notebook that I've dedicated to that. I've written different things like on the front about like gratitude and learning yourself, like self discovery, all of these different things. But yeah, I pull it out and I just dump my thoughts into it. If I'm just having a moment, or if I feel like I want to journal, but I don't really have like an immediate thing that like thought that I need to dump, then I'll find a prompt of some sort. If I find myself being um, fairly disconnected from gratitude, I'll purposely try to find something that I can you know journal some gratitude about. Um, but yeah, I really just try to make it a regular practice, but not something that's obligatory because it becomes work at that point, and it is
Mm-hmm.
not something that I benefit from. So I really just try to do it as the spirit moves me. One thing that I found really useful is um, give a free bump to this application called Finch.
Okay.
But it is a wonderful app that I love, and it's just a okay. So I'm gonna take it way back. Do y'all remember Tamagotchis? Like those little
Absolutely.
virtual, yeah, them little virtual pets. So this
Mm-hmm.
is kind of what Finch is, but it's on your phone. It's an application, and it's a little birdie animal pet that you take care of. Um, and it has these. It's basically it's like a self care app. Is how I kind of view it. But it has all of these different things that you can do in terms of like setting personal goals for yourself, and it also has like just this area for a little, it has like thoughts dump and all of
Mm.
these different things that you can just blurt out all of your feels that you have, and
Okay.
sometimes it will prompt you, sometimes you can just put it into a blank space. And it's just housed in this application, the things that you type. Last time I checked their terms and whatever, like it does not go to the application. All of the things that you actually
Mm.
type into the application stay on your phone. uh,
Nice.
which is nice. So you can really feel comfortable, kind of just thought dumping any and everything.
Yeah.
And that's been very convenient because you always have your phone with you. And so it's kind of become that one friend that I just go and tell everything to, and I
Yeah.
don't feel guilty because that is literally what my little Finchy is there for.
I like
Um,
that.
so that's just another way that I think that's kind of how I've fallen off of my actual like writing in my notebook. It's just been writing into that application because it's just a little bit more convenient for me these days. But yeah, my approach is pretty loosey goosey. I take my notebook and I start writing. If I'm finding myself needing kind of some kind of prompt, then I'll just Google like gratitude prompts
Mm-hmm.
or shadow work prompts, grief writing prompts. Of course, Google has a plethora of things to pull from. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if I'm ever feeling just kind of stumped or not knowing what to write about, I'll just pull something from there. Yeah, otherwise I just treat it as my, I don't know. Yeah, my thought dump zone. I don't know how else to put it, but yeah, it's just a really a space to get everything out. So I don't. Yeah, it's just not on that repetitive wheel. So
Yes.
I don't have a full on like this is how I do it. It's really kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Just when the spirit moves me, I grab my notebook, and when I don't have my notebook, I use my phone with the Finch app.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I've liked the app a lot because sometimes it'll prompt you for things that you weren't thinking about, and it'll help you kind
Mm.
of get into some self discovery stuff. So I've liked it for that as well.
Okay.
And it's free, so it's great in that way as well. So
That's beautiful.
yeah, ramble done. Sorry.
So
Whew, we're
Raylene
doing we're
said,
doing great.
right? Raylene asked, how do you decide when to journal? Do you just do it when it feels like there's too much in your head, or is it kind of on a schedule? And then she also said, I got a journal with prompts for Christmas, and I'm already getting upset at myself for missing a day. Like, how do people do it casually and not stop from self criticism? So, and welcome in Jones. I saw you redeemed the first in the chat. When it comes to not getting upset with yourself and doing it casually, I believe that the key is to kind of zoom out a little bit and look at yourself as a person. So
Mm,
for me, with these morning chats, I have zero prep. My only prep is creating the background that says the topic for the day. And like if I have a guest with me, that's it. I don't write
hmm
down any notes. I do not write down any bullet points. And then same for after. I don't do any edits. I just take this video and post it to YouTube. That's it. Because I know that if there's too many steps to get to that complete,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's not, especially as
hmm
consistently as I've been, because I've been doing these videos since December 2nd. I think this is the longest I've ever been on this kind of streak. And I've told myself that I'm proud of myself, but I try not to overthink it too much.
mm
Because if I
hmm
overthink it
hmm
too much, I'm like, well, will I be able to continue? How long will
mm
I be able to continue? And then, you get into like this existential crisis type thing, and it's
Yep.
just too much. So, to answer your question, Raylene, maybe change your verbiage in your mind. Instead of saying I have to journal, say I get to journal.
Yes.
I get to
Oh, you
journal
took it right
today.
out of my mouth. Took it
I get to
right out of
journal
my mouth.
today. And to your question point, the first question, doing it when you feel like there's too much in your head is absolutely a wonderful way to start.
hmm
It doesn't have to be done every single day. Like Diane is mentioning, her Finch has become, the friend that she tells everything to. But I mean, some of us definitely have feel like we have to vent every single day. Um, but again, finding a way to get it out of you, and it doesn't have to be at the same time. Like it doesn't have to be every day at 7:15 a.m. at the crack of
hmm
dawn.
hmm
I drink my coffee and I watch the sunrise as I drink. Like no, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that at all. It could be in the
Like,
morning some days, or in the afternoon, or it could be In the evening, it could be right before you go to sleep. Sometimes that's
Yep.
the best time for people to journal because
Yes.
they're sitting down, the day is kind of done, and they're like, all right, now I can kind of, you know, but again, I mean, Diana mentioned a bunch of wonderful things. Popping on Google and grabbing some prompts from there, and you can type, like she said, gratitude prompts, grief prompts. You could just type journal prompts. You
Mm-hmm.
could type self
Mm-hmm.
love prompts. You can type
Yes.
literally anything, and you will get something.
You
And what
will.
I usually do is go to those super spammy websites that have like a cajillion ads, but they'll have like 100 prompts, and I just scroll through, and the first one that catches my eye, that's the one I go with.
Mm-hmm.
If I see
Mm-hmm.
one that catches my attention in my eye, I don't continue to scroll. I just grab that one and run with it because I know that I'll just continue reading through the whole list of 100, and the next thing I know, I'll be on TikTok. So it won't be productive. It won't be productive at all. So Raylene says, yes, I be overthinking like that all the time. Absolutely, absolutely. And again, just like she mentioned, the repetitive nature of our thoughts, that's what keeps us overthinking because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we don't even realize that these thoughts are on a cycle. It might
Yeah.
be the same 4 or 5 thoughts over and over and over again until, like maybe we switch gears and do something different or whatever. But if we're just kind of sitting and nothing else is really happening that requires our energy or attention, like if we're not, um, I don't know. And that's different because if I'm doing homework, I could absolutely get super distracted. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if I'm doing math homework, I won't. If I'm writing an essay, I absolutely will. I'll
Mm.
get distracted really easily because it's like it doesn't require enough of my brain or enough of my attention,
Mm.
or maybe because I just really don't want to do it. Whereas I really enjoy doing math,
Yeah.
so it's easier to keep my focus.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, to sum it all up, in my ramble, journal whenever you can, whenever you like to, whenever the spirit moves you. Don't feel obligated to do it every single day. Don't feel obligated to write in a physical journal. It's okay. Like, it's not like, oh, well, it wasn't real journaling because I didn't physically write it with
Right.
my favorite
Right.
pen on paper. It's okay to do voice notes. It's okay to do speech to text in your phone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Download the Finch app and see how that works for you. It's okay to do it in the morning, in the evening, in the middle of the day, at a random coffee shop, whatever
Mm-hmm.
feels good
Mm-hmm.
to you that day. And do your best to kind of tell yourself, okay, I get to journal. I have a moment. I get to journal right now. I
Yep.
have the opportunity in the space. Um, I wanted to ask you, Diana, just how, not how, but if you could share a little bit more about your educational journey so far, especially, being a Black woman in higher education and just kind of how that has been for you. And yeah, just go ahead.
Sure, sure, sure. Before I have one thing I want to add
Yeah.
to the last topic we were just speaking about in terms of I just want to say like don't open up your journal and start writing like an English teacher is about to read this. Like do not go in
That
there with
part.
this perception of I need to have perfect grammar, perfect spelling, perfect all of no, just get your thoughts out. Like
Yep.
get rid of this whole like wait, I don't have like a thesis statement and a body and a no, like you know what I mean? Like we
I
don't
have
need
no
perfection.
paragraphs.
Yeah, I don't know how to arrange it. No, just get your thoughts out, right? I think that used to hold me up a lot is trying to like how do I organize nobody's reading this but you unless you want them to. So just let
Right.
that go.
Right.
Anywho, okay, so my academic journey, educational journey, it has been a long one. I've been in school since kindergarten, literally.
Right.
Um, yeah. So I took my time um through my undergrad career and really just trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. Um, I was working full time while I was doing like community college, um, and then I transferred to a 4 year university to finish out my bachelor's degree. Um, I thought that you could just go in, like, I just thought, oh, yeah, I'll have my bachelor's in psychology and I can do loads of things. Wasn't until my senior year in of my bachelor's degree, I was like, oh, that's not how that works. Oh, okay. So I guess maybe I need to go a little further. So that's when I was like, all right, well, I'll go get a master's, but was not sure what it was I wanted to do. And so I ended up in a general experimental master's program for psychology,
Hmm.
which um, I don't think well, no, I did know that at the time. It also does not quite prepare you for anything other than going into a PhD program.
Mm.
Um, yeah. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to pursue the PhD because then, because I still had not decided what it was I wanted to do. I was like, I still don't know. But if I got the PhD, I can do
Yeah.
whatever I want. I can teach, I can do research, I can, do clinical work. So I won't be pigeonholed into something. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was really what kept me kind of going, the fact that I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. And the fact that I wasn't really informed on how to
Mm.
take some of those steps, right? Had I known
Yes.
prior to my senior year, I would have prepared myself more to apply to graduate school. I did not know that, so I ended up spending an extra year in my bachelor's program, getting um, you know uh, making connections with faculty to get letters of recommendation, getting some research experience under my belt. um, and so, yeah, so that tacked on an extra year to my bachelor's program.
Mm-hmm.
Then in my master's program, um, I took an extra year there too. I don't remember exactly why at this point, but I feel like it was similar to that as well. Like, well, nope, that one was my own problem. I was afraid I wasn't ready for the PhD program yet. So I was like, wait, I need more time to blah blah blah.
Time out. Time
So I
out.
took an extra year there, even though I was like, no, you're ready, and I'm like, no, I'm not. Uh, Now I wish I would have, again, looking back, I wish I would have just taken that leap.
Mm-hmm.
But in reflecting on my journey, I am very thankful that I didn't, because I learned a lot in my master's program that I wouldn't have learned in my PhD program.
Mm.
And I learned a lot about myself in terms of where I wanted to focus my attention. I found the focus on trauma in my master's program. So I
There you
wouldn't have had
go.
that. The people that I met, the mentors that I had, like all of those things that became part of my journey also have contributed to who I am as a like personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
So mm, tying it back to the journey piece, I think is really important to, again, to recognize the power in that. Because had I done things in a different timeline, I would have been in a completely different place at this point. I would not have ended up in the graduate program that I'm in. I likely would not have had experiences in the VA, would not be doing, found my calling type of thing, all of these things.
Right.
Um, yeah. And then, so fast forward to the PhD program, that was where being a Black woman in higher education actually became, I don't want to say became relevant, but it became very salient for me,
Mm.
because I left a very diverse bachelor's and master's program and went to a much less diverse program, both in terms of faculty and uh,
Mm.
uh, student body. And so I was one of the only students of color in my cohort,
Mm.
and um, and that felt like it was more so on paper, because at face value I was not viewed by everyone as a student of color,
Right.
which I get that. I understand my stimulus. I am fully aware of my stimulus value,
Yeah.
but it was because on paper they were able to count me as part of their diversity. It became kind of mm, it felt a bit tokenish,
Mm.
in a way, like, hey, can you talk to us about these things? Can you
Mm.
come and talk about X, Y, and Z? And so that became a bit uncomfortable, and again became much more salient in ways um, that had not been previously.
Right.
And it's I don't know. It's contributed to some difficulties, I would say, in navigating the program and in navigating just professional avenues, in terms of how to push back against some of those things, um, how to navigate the power dynamics that come along with being
Right.
in higher education. It's difficult because you have these people who are they're your gatekeepers. They are your letter writers. They are they are the people who essentially they open or close the gate for you to get on to the next step.
Yeah.
And so it becomes very tricky to try and navigate some of those relationships when there are um, potentially problematic beliefs or practices being um, practiced. I don't know
Right.
how else to put that. Uh, yeah, so it can be a little bit difficult, and so that, yeah, in my current program, it has been more apparent than ever just how important it is that there are um, very specific supports put in place for students of color in higher education,
Right.
because it is not specifically in psychology, but I think in just about every field, it is
Mm-hmm.
it was not born of. Um, people of color, did not
Right.
contribute to the creation of this field. It is the oldest, whitest men that have shaped this field and that have continued to shape this field based on how things are taught and framed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so it can be very difficult to find your space and to find your voice in all of that. And
Right.
so it has been a journey.
Right.
Certainly, like
Right.
it's been very interesting, and it's caused me to really reflect a lot on again on myself, on my own personal values, my professional values, reflect on on my stimulus value and what that's bringing to the table, and how people are um, perceiving me, experiencing me, and how they might be pigeonholing me based on those different perceptions or
Mm.
experiences.
Right.
Um, yeah. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been very interesting, and there's been a lot of discussion. I think just in the wake of George Floyd and the
Mm.
entire just kind of what they call that, the racial reckoning of the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it caused a lot of conversations to be put at the forefront of a lot. I think of a lot of places. My university in also, right. We did not escape those conversations, and so
Right.
it's caused a lot of things to be brought to the forefront, and the students have been championing for changes to be made in the department and within the university as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been difficult. We've met some, not opposition, but resistance, I'll say.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, it's been difficult in terms of trying to really um, recognize my place in all of that, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
where I belong academically, where I belong personally, professionally, like how I want to show up in these spaces,
Mm-hmm.
and what I want people to take away from my contributions, in those spaces. It's been very interesting. It's been very interesting. Something that um, myself and my colleagues we've had many conversations about how to navigate those things, and just what it's been like. But it's definitely been a very interesting journey, and
Yeah.
one that, again, because as you framed it, as a Black woman in higher education, that was not salient until I got to the PhD program in
Right.
this particular area. Until that point, it was more salient that I was a woman pursuing a higher education degree as opposed to
Mm.
being a Black woman. Um,
Right.
Whereas, yeah, like the yeah, more aspects of my background have become more salient as I've kind of um, stepped up each degree level, I guess you can say, which I've not actually taken some time, like, until having this conversation now. I don't know that I've actually really recognized it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting to think about. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how far my ramble got to your question, but
No, you totally got it. You totally got it. And first and foremost, I wanted to say that I'm very proud of you for continuing to pursue, because I know it has been difficult. I know there have been days where you're like, F this,
oh
I'll just pay
yes,
the loans back. It's fine. I want to,
oh
because I've been there. So I'm very proud of you for sticking it through, 3 degrees up to a doctorate program, which I can only imagine the level of not only difficulty, but also, I'm trying to think of how to describe this, because I've kind of experienced it a little bit in the second master's program. It's like, I mean, I guess it really just comes down to trying to appease or please the gatekeepers, at
hmm
some point.
hmm hmm
Um, for me personally, my academic journey began, and really, and I see your question, Boo. I'm gonna address it in just a hot second. Uh, my kind of not understanding, but grasp on my blackness in education started in my undergrad. But it's also because I went to a very small university
hmm
in a very white little town, old
okay,
town. I went to the University of Laverne, um,
oh
which is
yes,
super, super. I mean, it's a little neighborhood campus. It's grown since I've been there. They've
hmm
built more buildings and etc. But I mean, I can count most of my classes. I was the only black kid in the class,
hmm
and I say kid
hmm
because I feel like I was still a kid during my undergrad. And that wasn't so much of a issue. Like, I didn't feel tokenized until, like you mentioned, we'd have certain conversations, And then, like I took an ethics, religion, and the environment class and different courses like that, because my degree was in kinesiology, so exercise science. So it wasn't specifically, like sociology based or people based or anything like that. But we'd have certain conversations, and kind of everybody kind of looks at you a little bit like, all right, let's hear what she has to say. She's the expert.
Yeah.
And then for my first master's degree, I did an online program for business administration. I thought I needed an MBA to run a business. You don't. I'm just letting y'all know. You don't. And then my third degree, which I'm working on now, my second master's, I'm getting my master's in teaching with a single subject credential to teach math. But to Diana's point, like, I don't even want to teach math anymore. Like, first I wanted to get into physical therapy. That was my very first goal, was to do something like personal training or physical therapy. But again, like she mentioned, I didn't prepare myself to pursue that. Like, I didn't do enough research. I didn't have anybody to hold my hand or even give me any kind of anything along the way. And by the time I finished my bachelor's degree, I wanted to go into, I didn't even know. A doctorate sounded extremely scary at the time. I think this was 2013. So I was like 21. So I was like, hell nah, That's how my some adults do. I am not an adult. No.
It sounds like adult school.
Don't want to go to adult school. So they told me essentially, in order to kind of start this process, there's some more prerequisites you have to take. And I'm like, ugh, prerequisites. So if I were to go to like a JC and take the prereqs, I would be on a waiting list, yada, yada, yada. If I were to take them at my university, I would have to pay out of pocket because I'd only be taking, specific classes. I could have taken those specific classes before I finished my 4-year degree, but again, wasn't prepared. So then that kind of went out the window, and then I was like, well, I'll just start a business. Let me go get my master's in business administration. Took that 2-year degree program online. It was completely unhelpful. I learned nothing. Nothing at all. Ended up starting a business anyway, a tutoring business, and the only thing I used from that program was an Excel spreadsheet on expenses. That's it. Everything was like theoretical. There was nothing applied, which I understand to a certain degree because it was an online program, but that was my biggest beef with it. And then after another couple years, everyone's like, oh my goodness, you should be a teacher. And I'm like, I know, right? Now, I know this about myself now. It doesn't matter what I do. I'm going to be good at it. All I have to do is commit to something. Because I have a plethora of interests, which I'm sure we can all attest to, having a plethora of interests. And that's where we feel kind of pigeonholed, like Diana mentioned, in higher education, because we're thinking, well, if I start in psychology, I got to continue in psychology. But that's not the case. And I'm a perfect example. I started in exercise science, went to business, and now I'm in teaching. So, and my goal, which I think I've mentioned, I don't remember when I mentioned it, but my goal is to build a boarding charter school here in the high desert, kindergarten through 8th grade. I want the children to live there. I want them to have every need that they could possibly have met on campus. I want to remove them from their current environment. I want to take the worst of the worst, etc., etc. In order to pursue another degree in administration, I have to teach for 5 years. But I don't want to teach at all. So here I am. Right. Here I am, stuck again. So yeah, but I just want to encourage everyone, if there's something that you're interested in, first and foremost, find a mentor. I am certain that if you have questions about psychology, Diana will be happy to answer them. I am certain.
Absolutely.
If you have questions about business or exercise science or teaching, I'll do my best. I'll do my best. But first and foremost, find yourself a mentor and find someone who's well-versed in being able to look through the catalogs of whatever degree you want to pursue and really get to know what those classes are going to teach you or they're supposed to teach you. Because that was my thing. Like, I tell everyone now, if you're going to pursue a degree in business, you better make damn sure they have some sort of social media class. You better make sure. They have to, because it's so interwoven in business now, and it was when I took my degree. I graduated in 2017. Like, social media was so totally a thing. But, to her point, as far as the conversations that she's having with her colleagues in her doctorate program about changes that need to happen within the institution, that stuff takes time. So even if it's a conversation,
oh gosh,
you know what I mean, at whatever school you want to pursue your business degree in, If they haven't implemented it, look elsewhere. Just look elsewhere. Go to the institution that suits your needs and is going to teach you what you need to know or want to know. And then next, just don't be afraid, boo. Like, if there's one thing the government's going to do, is give you student loans.
Yep.
Just, they going to give you loans. I think I'm at $125,000. It brings me no stress. I sleep so well at night. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. And I know that's a lot. That's a huge stressor for a lot of people is,
It is.
you know, I
It
don't
is.
want to
Yeah.
be in debt. I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to be in debt. And it's like, it's benefiting you. And in all honesty, student loan providers are probably the chillest people who will ever give you a loan or sponsor a loan or whatever it's called. Because the honest truth is, as long as you communicate with them, they're going to take whatever you're going to give them. If you pay $50 a month for 100 years, they're going to take it. Like, I'm going to tell you right now. So, again, get yourself a mentor. If you have questions about financial aid and stuff like that, like I said, either me or Diana, we've been through it. We have to every single year. We don't have a choice. FAFSA, all that stuff, let us know. Because doing that stuff alone is not fun.
No, it's not.
Not at all. So, Raylene had asked, has there been anything in your learning journey where the rules or topics have changed? And how was that been like? Things that have changed in psychology, perhaps a term. Oh, okay. Perhaps a term or a diagnosis or etc.
Oh, that's a great. Okay.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe the change happened right before I entered my doctorate program. But I know for sure, like a pretty one that's commonly talked about and is the inclusion of like Asperger's in the autism spectrum disorder diagnosis, right? That
Nice.
was it was removed from being its own diagnosis and kind of put into the umbrella of the autism spectrum disorder. I think that's a big one, which is really interesting because you get kind of a mixed reaction to that. There are some individuals who really identify with the Asperger's diagnosis, and so the fact that that was kind of taken away from them was upsetting in some ways. And then there are other proponents of it that feel that it makes it more some more accurate diagnosis in terms of putting it on this spectrum of different experiences that you can have. I know there's a big, well, just in my own like field of research, there's a huge debate over how PTSD is defined, primarily with criterion A. So for post-traumatic stress disorder, it's the only disorder that you have to have experienced something specific for you to meet criteria for this diagnosis. And so when I talk about criterion A, it's the idea that you have experienced a life-threatening or extremely distressing event, is what we qualify or define as trauma. So it's something that was life-threatening, either experiencing or witnessing something life-threatening, like a physical assault, sexual assault, abuse of some sort, combat exposure, exposure to a natural disaster. There's a checklist of things that kind of meet the criteria of a traumatic event, and there's a huge debate about that because there's a lot of things that do not meet criterion A, but can still result in very similar post-traumatic stress symptoms. And so there's a lot of debate about that.
Right.
But I don't necessarily think that it's changed since I've been in psychology. There is a lot of debate as well about how the U.S. Defines disorders. We use the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the DSM-5, whereas just about everybody else uses the ICD, the International Classification of Diagnoses. I think that's what it stands for. Yeah, the ICD-10 or 11, I think it is now.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so, again, with PTSD specifically, there are two very different definitions of what qualifies as trauma in those two different diagnostic manuals. And so,
US.
we are so special in that way. And so those are the two main things that come to my mind in terms of like things that might have changed. Something that changed well before I entered the psychology academic sphere, whatever you want to call it, was the like disordering LGBTQIA individuals, right? That
Mm.
used to be considered a disorder. In
Wow.
like homosexuality was considered a disorder in the book, in the
Okay.
DSM. I don't know about ICD, but at least in DSM it was for
Mm-hmm.
some time. I don't have the specifics on when that was changed, but that's something that's changed. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, those are the things that come off the top of my head, Raylene. But yeah, I think that's a great question.
It really was. I was like, what is she trying to ask? I don't understand what she's trying to say. But I appreciate you for asking that.
Hmm.
Unfortunately,
Hmm.
I do have to wrap up our chat for today. I got to get baby boy to go to his
Oh,
checkup.
that's right. Dang, time
I
flies.
know
Okay.
it. I was like looking at time. I'm like, no,
Oh
no.
man. See,
And
no.
then I
Okay,
have a
so
little
I think we're gonna need a part two for this one
right. I have a
at
little
some
timer,
point.
and it's like you've been live for 50 minutes, and I'm like, for real?
Like,
I'm like,
ooh,
oh, I gotta go. Oh goodness.
we gotta wrap it up. Okay. Oh
So
man.
real quick, Raylene says, I know, right? It's the awkward silence and stares expecting you to represent. Oh, it's literally so horrible how they approach race in schools. Just feels like
It
a massive
is.
spotlight and topics are so surface level. Exactly. And again,
Absolutely.
we could absolutely dive into this in another conversation because we
Yeah.
won't get into it.
I mean, I'm gonna jot that down as just a further
Right.
comment. Yeah.
And then Raylene says, oh, wow, you get to be a part or listen to discussions in psychology. That's interesting. That is really, really cool. The fact that, is kind of like happening around you in the field and you get to experience it. That's really,
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah, it's more so presented to us in the course, kind of like how these things have progressed. Like, so we're not actually contributing to the conversations.
Gotcha.
Well, not the conversations that are making the changes, but we get to
Yes.
have those different conversations. Anywho, let me
Yes.
stop because I know we got to go. Let me stop.
I appreciate you.
Put a
Okay, my
pin in it,
loves.
y'all. Put a pin in
I
it.
know, right? It has been such a wonderful conversation. Um, yes, thank you for being here, Raylene. Thank you for being such a wonderful person in the chat and asking questions and engaging. For anyone else that was watching the live stream here on Twitch, thank you for watching. If you're catching the replay on YouTube, leave a thumbs up, like, subscribe to my YouTube channel. My merch is out. This is
Yes.
my sweatshirt. It
Choose
says, can you read it? Is it clear?
choose you before life starts life in.
Yes, y'all. Yes, you see baby girl, she chilling.
I
She
love it.
chilling. In addition to the sweater, I have a mug. You
Hmm.
know.
Get that merch, y'all. Get that merch.
So my my command timer thingy is not working, but I will leave the link to everything in the description of my YouTube video as soon as I get all that posted. I'll take care of it probably later this afternoon. Diana, I love you. Thank you for being here again. And she'll be back next week, y'all. We'll figure out a day, but
Yeah.
she's gonna be back next week. I love
Yes.
you
Yes. I
all.
will.
Have a wonderful day. And hold on one second, Diana. Don't leave yet. But
Okay.
I
Love
will
y'all.
end the stream and I'll see y'all all tomorrow. Bye.